Now we shift over to small group problem-based learning and small group learning. Professor DEBADATTA PANIGRAHI celebrates his 75th birthday today, and so we wish him a happy birthday, 75th birthday to Dr. Deb. And he has been in PGI Chandigarh. Then he went over to Kuwait, to Bahrain, to Sharjah, where we worked together for some time, and now he's back here in India. Professor Deb, please explain.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the good wishes. 75th birthday actually doesn't mean anything, but it's a birthday. I was born on this day 75 years back. Uh, Thank you, Professor Ashok. We are good friends. We know each other. I had a couple of slides, but I was told that slides will not be shown. So I'll have to read out from what I have submitted. But it was Professor Sonal showed some slides. I was thinking that probably you are going to show the slides. My topic today is about problem-based learning. Why this is there is I am trained in the usual curriculum, medical curriculum that is there for ages. And I went to Kuwait, where also some similar type of curriculum was there. But we started somehow small group teaching in the practicals, particularly the dry practicals we used to have it. Then from Kuwait, after 11 years, I moved for a short period to Bahrain. There I was in the ministry heading medical microbiology, immunology, and infectious disease. But I was a visiting professor to AGU, Arabian Gulf University, which was purely based on problem-based learning curriculum. I saw that. I was not associated too much with it. But from there, after only 10 months of stay in Bahrain, I moved to Sharjah University, University of Sharjah. They were starting a new medical college, and they sent a team. The team selected me. I came there as one of the founder faculties, founder first vice dean, and then chairman of clinical science department. And there, the curriculum was purely based on problem-based learning. And then from Sharjah, after 10 years, I moved to Russell Khaimah, RAC Medical University. Dr. Godfrey is there. He was there that time when I was there. And I went there as CEO. And they were having a traditional medical curriculum with some amount of or one or two PBLs or TBLs incorporated into the curriculum. When I was there, I was approached by the authorities of Ajman University, by the Crown Prince office, to help them to start a medical college. So I with a couple of my friends, we started a medical college in Ajman University. They have a medical college which has a totally different curriculum, and I will be talking about that in my last slide or my last couple of minutes about this. Actually, when we talk of PBL, there are two PBLs. Some of you must be knowing it. One is a project-based learning, and another is a problem-based learning. Both these are student-centered. The project-based learning, the student create a tangible product or a performance, example like a website or a presentations or a model, and demonstrate their understanding of a concept or the skills student-centered and student choose a topic. In case of problem-based learning, the student doesn't have anything to do with the topic. It's not chosen by them, but it is also student-centered. The students are presented with a real-life problem. They work to find a solution, often through research, analysis, and collaborations. There are similarities between PBL and PBL. Both are student-centered. They are real-world relevance, and they are collaborations, which is very important part of any kind of this problem-based learning or project-based learnings. They are problem solving, both are problem solving, and the process are process oriented. Now I'll come to problem-based learning. In problem-based learning, the aims of objectives mostly are work in team. The most important uh, hallmark of a problem-based learning is the students should know how to work in a team, managing projects and holding leadership roles, oral and written communications, self-awareness and evaluation of group process, working independently, critical thinking and analysis, which are very important part, explaining concepts, self-directed learning, applying course content to real-world examples, then researching and information literacy, and problem solving across the disciplines. To start this problem-based learning, the student generally must examine and define the problem, explore what they already know about underlying issues related to a real life problem, determine what they need to learn and where they can acquire the information and tools necessary to solve the problem, explore possible ways to solve the problem, report on their findings, and which we call as brainstorming sessions. As you see from this, it certainly needs certain preparations. Getting started with a PBL, it actually starts several months before the actual session. The unit head or the director of the program decides, for example, I'll give an example. For example, it is a respiratory system module going on. Then they decide what problems should be taken care of that. When it is a purely problem-based learning, whole system or all the weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, will have 4 or 5 problems. But when it is not a purely problem-based learning, then they have 1 or 2 problems. The problems will be relating to a real life problem. Like in respiratory system, for example, community acquired pneumonia, asthma, or for example, tuberculosis. These are some of the very important problems. But definitely, malignancy of the lungs is not a very important problem. The class is to be first divided into small groups. Every group, no group should be more than having more than 10 students. They should think of a problem in line with the learning objectives of the week. Well, whatever is the learning objectives of the week, the problem fits to that learning objective. They articulate the learning outcomes of the project. What do you want students to know? And accordingly, we decide. Create the problem, ideally real world situations that resembles something students may encounter in their future careers as young doctors. Cases are often the basis of PBL. Establish ground rules at the beginning of and prepare the students for this. What we usually do is the class is being introduced to a problem-based learning. It's called a introductory lecture, introductions to the problem-based learning to the students, so they know how the things are going to happen. Establish how you will evaluate and assess assignment. Assignment or evaluations in PBL curriculum is bit tricky because it's mostly subjective. PBL sessions is usually held in the first 2 hours of the first working day of the week. Introduce students to the group. It is all done by facilitator. Mind it, the PBL, the subject matter experts do not play any role as subject matter experts. Even if they are there, they are only facilitators. They facilitate the program. They are not subject matter experts in a PBL session. The session is usually held in the first 2 hours of the first working day of the week. Introduce students to the group and then do some warm-up exercises to allow them to practice assessing both their own work and that of their peers. How it is done, you just ask them to introduce themselves, to tell 2 sentences, couple of lines about themselves, and ask the person sitting next to them, ask how he did it, how did he do the work. So this is what we do. Then consider having students take on different roles or divide up the work up amongst themselves. As I told you in the beginning, one of the aim of PBL is to develop leadership within the students. And so they choose a leader who decides the things I'll be telling subsequently to in the process of the PBL. Students are given access to problems step by step. The whole problem is not given to them. First, to start with the clinical presentation. The patient comes, a 16 years old girl comes to the emergency with severe headache and things like that. So they are given the clinical presentation of the case scenario to start with. And they end up deciding on working diagnosis of the case. And as it processes, after each presentation, students do brainstorming exercises by discussing on points in the history relevant to the problem. Then this is followed by information about physical findings. Step by step, they are given, and they were allowed to access only one paragraph after the other paragraph. So about the physical findings and clinical examination findings of the patient. Then they go back to the histories and they discuss what actually wrong there and what should be or which are the most important cases or important diagnosis to be included. Followed by, then lastly, they would be giving the laboratory and imaging investigations done on the particular patient. So with that, they end up the student know the final diagnosis. Once the final diagnosis is known to the student, they themselves decide the topic for presentation are decided and distributed by the leader of the group. And they decide who is going to present what, and they go on a chronological order. The facilitator sits there, facilitates these activities, and every time sees to it that they do not cross the boundaries, because there is always a boundary. The facilitator is provided with all the informations that is to be included in their learning process. The PBL session 2, this is first session. In between the weekdays, lot of lectures and clinical skill trainings are done on that particular module or particular subject. And then session 2 is usually held in the first 2 hours of the last working day of the week, or sometimes it is in the last 2 hours of the last working day of the week. The session starts with one of the students presenting or summarizing the case that they had the previous on the first session. Students then present their allocated topics one after another. It is up to the facilitator either to tell them about their presentations after each presentation is finished, what are the good things, what are the drawbacks, how they can improve, or the facilitator can combine it and present at the end of the presentations. But we usually prefer to do it after each presentation so that the students know where they are strong and which points they are weak and what they should do. And the most important thing about the facilitator is the giving marks to them, the assessment. So what is done, there is usually the college prepares, the examination committee prepares a template. The template is provided to the teacher, to the facilitators, and so to just to reach somewhere score which should be acceptable and approved, because there are several groups, about 10 groups are having, and 10 facilitators will be giving the marks. So it doesn't, and then the teachers are also trained before PBLs are done, and they are told that it doesn't mean that one student has done the presentation very good and he can tell, oh, I was told excellent in my presentation, why the mark is only 80%. Then we tell them, no, when you are presenting, it's fine, your presentation was good. But when your peer were presenting, you are working on the computer, your group activity is zero. You do not know how to work in a group. And that's the reason why you have been given less marks. So this is how the assessment has to be done. It is a tricky thing, actually. And I have a couple of slides, actually. Since I was not allowed to have the slides, I couldn't show how the sessions was held. Now, there are certain limitations of previous curriculum. It's not that everything is fine there. The time consuming, it's a very time consuming. Then the assessment is challenge, as I told. Then the resource intensive. The college should provide a good resource. So nowadays with the Google and AI and all that chat GPT, students can get a lot of resources. Then variable outcomes. The outcomes are not always same. The good students actually, their outcome is much better than the weak students. And it is a teacher's training, which is very important. You cannot just throw facilitators to a PBL session and ask them to facilitate a session. They cannot do it. That's why we actually run sessions of PBL training and starting of the academic year to start it. See, when we talk of curriculum, then we can talk here that, oh, PBL is a very good curriculum, excellent curriculum, we should go for it. No, no curriculum is good, no curriculum is bad. Curriculum we call is that a living organism. So curriculums should be present, should be prepared as per the need of your institution, need of your country, and it should be aligned with the learning needs of the of your that your institution needs them to know, not to be borrowed from others. A borrowed curriculum is always useless. It is not at all helpful for us. We have faced in Sharjah University. They have borrowed it from Monash, and in 1 year time, we just threw it. So it should adequately address the learning objectives, and the periodic evaluation of the total program should be done by feedback from the students. As I told in the beginning, when I moved to Azman University, we developed a different kind of curriculum, which we call as hybrid curriculum. I would like to speak a couple of minutes on this particular curriculum. This curriculum, which is based on organ systems like many other curriculum units, as unit based, in which PBL and TBL were incorporated. Each organ system is divided into two separate units. Say, for example, cardiovascular, it is 6 weeks, 3 weeks, and 3 weeks. First 3 weeks, the student comes in the first 2 years of their course, which is the first 2 years with the pre-medical or the preparatory years. They were given lectures and clinical skill trainings and the mannequins and all trainings in anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and genetics, mostly. Then again, when they come to year 3 and 4, that is the paraclinical year, or just before going to the clinical years, again they come to the same organ systems, like again they will come back to cardiovascular system or respiratory system, and here they are mostly taught in pathology, microbiology, immunology, pharmacology, and also given lectures on clinical subjects relating to that particular week. And we have seen that this kind of curriculum is very well accepted in the students. They like it. They get well trained because the system is not taught to them in at a go for 5 years, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, or 7 weeks. It is split into 2 weeks and it's done. When they go to year 5 and 6, which is actually the clinical clock shift training years, this helps them quite a lot. Just one word, that UAE has now adopted a 6 years MD program, which has got first 2 years as the preliminary years, and then second 2 years, third year, fourth year, where I told you what we do it. But everybody doesn't do this curriculum in UAE except Azman University. And then the last 2 years, that fifth and sixth year, is the clock shift training. The total, they got a MD degree, which is Doctor of Medicine, not like our MD degree. And what happens there is after 4 years, like US, they can leave it and they will get a degree certificate, but not a medical degree, and they can go and join any paramedical or any other kind of programs. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and all this I had to speak.
Thank you very much, Professor Deb. I'm sorry that we decided about the slides, but I noticed that in Caho, policies are not consistently followed.